Jonas lived in a quiet neighborhood on the outer edge of the Terran X9 colony, a peaceful place shared by both humans and a few alien species. It wasn't crowded or noisy. Just clean roads, small houses, and the occasional hover car flying overhead. Most days were simple, quiet, and a little boring. But all of that changed the moment his new neighbor moved in. Her name was Azari. She looked nothing like the others. Her skin was a soft pale blue with a hint of purple, and her ears were small but curved in a way that gave her an otherworldly charm. Her hair was silver and tied back neatly. She wore long dresses with strange symbols on them, and she always moved gracefully, like she was floating. She didn't talk much, just nodded politely whenever Jonas saw her. Jonas didn't think much of her at first. Everyone said aliens were becoming a normal part of life now. Trade deals, alliances, space travel. It was all part of the galaxy's future. Still, Azari was different, mysterious, secretive. One evening, Jonas was sitting on his porch, sipping cold tea and enjoying the breeze. The sun had almost set, and the sky turned a soft shade of violet. That's when he noticed something unusual. A soft humming sound was coming from Azari's house next door. It wasn't the kind of hum that came from machines or air filters. It was deep, low, and almost musical. Then, small flashes of light began glowing through her windows. Blue, green, and golden pulses, blinking in patterns. Jonas leaned forward. He frowned. "What's she doing in there?" he whispered to himself. He stood up, walked over to the wooden fence that separated their houses, and peeked through a gap between the boards. The lights were brighter now, and the hum turned into a slow chant, like many voices speaking at once in a language he didn't understand. Suddenly, a floating orb, glowing softly, rose above Azari's house and hovered in place. It was no bigger than a basketball, but it was covered in strange runes that spun like gears. Jonas blinked. That was not normal. He tiptoed closer and noticed her back door was slightly open. He knew he shouldn't snoop, but something about the scene pulled him in. He crept up to the edge of the house and peeked inside. What he saw made him freeze. Inside the living room, a round table floated in midair. Around it sat 6 figures. Tall aliens dressed in fine robes, their skin covered in patterns and markings he had never seen. Azari stood at the head of the table, speaking with calm confidence. Her voice was smooth but firm. The room shimmered. A projection of a galactic star map hovered above the table. Planets lit up, spinning slowly in space. The orb from earlier floated between them, flashing each time someone spoke. Jonas leaned in, eyes wide. "Is this a council meeting?" he murmured. As he watched, one of the aliens placed a small metallic device under the table. It clicked quietly, then began to blink red, just once every few seconds. That didn't seem like part of the meeting. Jonas suddenly realized he might be watching something important, maybe even dangerous. His heart began to race. Was this some secret diplomatic event? Why here, in a quiet human neighborhood? And what was that device? Before he could think of anything else, the orb turned sharply and aimed directly at him. It glowed bright blue, and a strange buzzing filled the air. Jonas panicked and ducked down. He stumbled backward, bumping into a trash bin with a loud crash. The chanting inside stopped. Silence. Then footsteps, fast ones. Jonas turned and ran back to his house, heart pounding in his chest. He didn't stop until he was inside, door locked, and all lights off. He peeked through the curtains. No one followed him. But the orb was no longer floating. The lights inside Azari's house were off now. The humming had stopped. Jonas backed away from the window and sat on the floor. His breathing was heavy. His thoughts were a mess. What kind of meeting was that? Why was a strange device placed under the table? And why was his alien neighbor hosting something that looked dangerous? One thing was clear. Something strange was happening next door. And Jonas had just become part of it. The next morning, Jonas woke up early. His sleep had been light and broken. He kept thinking about what he had seen the night before, the glowing orb, the strange aliens, and especially that blinking device hidden under the table. He sat by his window with a mug of hot coffee, watching Azari's house. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Her house was quiet. No lights flashed. No strange sounds. It was as if nothing had happened. But Jonas knew better. Around noon, Azari stepped outside. She wore a long teal-colored cloak this time, her silver hair tied tightly. She looked calm, but something about the way she glanced around, sharp and quick, made Jonas believe she was nervous. She walked toward his house. Jonas stood up straight, quickly placing his mug on the table. He didn't know if she had seen him the night before. His heart beat faster. Azari stopped just before his porch. Her pale blue face looked tired. She lowered her voice. "Jonas," she said gently, "if something happens tonight, please stay inside. Do not come out." Jonas blinked. "Wait, what?" She didn't answer him. She turned and walked away, calm but fast. Before he could ask more, she had already entered her house and closed the door. Jonas stood there for a long time. Her words kept playing in his head. That evening, just as the sky turned dark, Jonas noticed something above her house. 3 small black drones hovered silently. They were shaped like discs and had blinking green lights underneath. They weren't like the delivery drones the colony used. These were military style. Quiet. Stealthy. Jonas frowned. Something was wrong. Against her warning, he slipped out through his back door and walked carefully around the edge of her property. He hid behind a tall tree, watching the back of her house. Her windows were glowing again, but this time the colors were red and orange. The orb was not in the sky. It seemed like whatever meeting she was part of last night had moved underground, or become even more secret. Suddenly, movement. Jonas saw one of the alien figures from the meeting enter the back door again, but something was different. This alien wore a black cloak and seemed to be sneaking in, not entering as a guest. He held a small box in his hand, wires hanging from it. Jonas squinted. The same type of device. The figure slipped into the shadows of the hallway, then dropped the device near the back corner of the room. This time, the blinking red light was brighter. Jonas's instincts kicked in. He took out his old phone and snapped a quick photo of the device. Then, without making a sound, he crept forward, reached through a gap in the wall, and grabbed the small device with 2 fingers. It was lighter than he expected, almost like plastic, but it gave off a soft warmth, like it was active. He backed away slowly, holding his breath. The alien inside didn't notice. Jonas returned home, heart pounding in his ears. Once inside, he locked the door and placed the device on the table. It didn't look like a bomb, but it was clearly not harmless either. He stared at it for a while, then carefully pressed the only button on its surface. A soft click. The device hummed, and then projected a small blue hologram above it. Jonas leaned forward. It was a recording of last night's meeting. The orb, the alien leaders, the map, all of it replayed in front of him. The images floated in the air, showing what they had said. Jonas listened closely. At one point, one alien said, "The humans are growing too bold. Their influence must be limited." Another added, "If we wait too long, they will become stronger than we imagined." Then Azari's voice, clear and calm. "You cannot judge them all the same. Humanity is not a threat. They are learning, adapting. They helped build this colony." But the others didn't agree. One of them pounded the table. "You've grown too fond of them. Perhaps you should be washed as well." Jonas sat back, stunned. This wasn't a normal meeting. It was a secret plan. A group of alien leaders wanted to limit humans, or worse, and Azari had tried to defend them. Before he could watch more, the device beeped sharply and then started to heat up. Jonas jumped back. The screen flashed red, and in a second, The entire device melted into ash, disappearing in a small puff of smoke. His room fell silent. Then came the knock. Jonas froze. It was her. Azari stood outside his door, eyes wide, breathing hard. "They know you saw it," she whispered. Jonas opened the door slowly. Azari stood there, her cloak wet from the night dew, her silver hair sticking to her pale blue face. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked around before stepping inside. "They know," she said again, her voice barely a whisper. Jonas locked the door behind her. "How do they know?" She stared at him. "The orb sensed your presence last night. It recorded more than just voices. It scans minds, emotions." Jonas stepped back, feeling cold. "Wait. That thing can read minds. Only emotions. Fear, curiosity, danger. It read yours when you were near the fence," she replied. Jonas sat down on the edge of his couch. "So now I'm in trouble because I peeked through a fence." "You weren't just peeking," Azari said, sitting opposite him. "You saw the meeting. You saw the device. And you took it." Jonas looked at the table where the device had burned into ash. It recorded everything. Their voices. The star map. Even what they said about humans. Why would they say all that? Azari's expression grew serious. Because it wasn't a meeting. It was a private judgment session. A secret circle of high-ranking delegates. They believe humans are growing too fast, too powerful. "But we've done nothing wrong," Jonas argued. "We helped build this colony. We work with them." Azari nodded. "I know. That's why I spoke up. But some species feel threatened by humanity's potential. Your creativity, your speed of learning. It frightens them. They think humans might replace them one day." Jonas rubbed his face with both hands. "So what do they want to do? Push us out of the galaxy?" "Not yet. First, they plan to quietly remove humans from key positions. Then limit your movement between planets. Control your growth." Jonas looked up at her. "That sounds like a plan. A hidden one. Something people need to know." "I agree," she said. "But the problem is, they control most of the media channels. If we try to go public, they will label us as liars or worse." Jonas stood up. "Then what do we do? Just stay quiet while they try to erase us slowly." Azari hesitated, then said, "There is one way. If we can gather proof and deliver it to the Unified Council on Earth, the leaders there might act. They still trust the human government. But it won't be easy." Before Jonas could reply, they heard a soft buzz, like a flying insect, but heavier. Azari rushed to the window and peeked through the blinds. "Drones. Surveillance class. Yours?" Jonas asked. "No," she whispered. "Theirs." Outside, 2 black drones hovered near the roof. Their tiny lenses scanned the area. A red light blinked beneath them. "They're looking for you," she said. Jonas grabbed his coat. "Then let's not give them the chance to find us." They slipped out the back door and moved through the alley behind his house. The night air was cool and the sky was clear, filled with stars. Azari led the way, taking narrow paths Jonas didn't know existed. She moved like someone trained to avoid being seen. "Where are we going?" he asked quietly. "To the old mining tunnel near the cliffs. It's abandoned. No scanners work that deep underground. We'll be safe there." They reached a hill covered in tall silver grass, and behind it, a wide metal door hidden beneath climbing vines. Azari pressed her palm against a panel beside the door. It lit up green and slid open with a hiss. They stepped inside. The tunnel was dark and cool, the walls lined with old lights and rusted support beams. Azari tapped her wristband, and a small glowing sphere floated up, lighting the path ahead. "We can rest here for a while," she said, "but we need a plan." Jonas sat on a crate, breathing heavily. "That device I took. Before it burned, I copied part of the recording to my tablet. Only 10 seconds, but it shows their faces and part of the map." Azari's eyes widened. That might be enough to start a case. The star map shows their intended areas of control. But how do we get it to Earth? Jonas asked. They'll block every signal or ship that leaves the colony. Azari thought for a moment. There's a human comms tower near the West Valley. It's old but still connected to the Earth Council's private channel. If we can get there, we might have a chance. Jonas looked at the glowing orb lighting the tunnel. They were planning something big, he said, but they didn't plan for me. Azari gave a small smile. No, she said softly. They didn't plan for you at all. The tunnel felt colder as the night grew deeper. Jonas and Azari sat quietly, listening for any sounds from outside. So far, nothing had followed them. But Jonas knew this calm wouldn't last. I still don't understand, he said, breaking the silence. Why would they choose your house for such a secret meeting? Azari glanced at him, her face thoughtful. Because they didn't expect anyone to notice. This neighborhood is mostly quiet, filled with peaceful workers. Humans here are friendly, curious, but not trained to detect danger. At least, that's what they believed. Jonas gave a small smile. So I surprised them just by being nosy. She smiled back. Exactly. He looked down at the tablet in his hand. The saved recording was short but powerful. In the 10-second clip, 3 of the alien leaders clearly talked about limiting human influence and removing key human posts from galactic operations. It wasn't much, but it was real. We can't wait long, Azari said, standing. Soon they'll realize the device you took was activated. They'll search for us. Jonas stood up too. Then let's get moving. You said something about a tower. Yes, she nodded. There's an old human communication tower in the West Valley. It was once used to send secure updates to Earth before the newer network systems came online. I believe it's still connected to a private Earth Council channel. How far is it? Jonas asked. 5 kilometers, through the edge of the woods and across the lower ridge. If we move carefully, we can reach it before dawn. Jonas followed her out of the tunnel. The wind outside was cold but fresh. Above them, the stars stretched across the sky like glitter scattered on black silk. They moved quickly but quietly through the forest. Azari led the way, using her knowledge of hidden paths and old colony layouts. Jonas kept checking their surroundings, alert for drone sounds or tracking lights. After nearly an hour, they reached a narrow ridge. Far below, they could see a faint metal structure standing tall against the dark sky. The tower. There it is, Azari whispered. Suddenly, a red beam of light shot across the path just behind them. Jonas ducked instinctively. What was that? Azari pulled him behind a rock. A scout drone. They're close. The small machine hovered in the air, scanning the area. Its eye-like lens rotated, and its wings buzzed softly. It passed by them, but didn't stop. Okay, we need a distraction, Jonas said. He looked around and found a loose rock the size of a football. Can you use your orb light again? She nodded and summoned the glowing orb from her wristband. Jonas grabbed the rock, whispered, now, and tossed it far to the left while Azari floated the light the opposite way. The drone turned sharply, following the movement. Go, Jonas whispered. They ran. Down the slope, through the bushes, and straight toward the tower. Their boots hit the rocky ground, dust flying up behind them. They didn't stop until they reached the base of the structure. The tower was old but still standing. A single rusted door blocked the entrance. Azari placed her hand on the panel beside it, but it stayed red. It doesn't recognize me, she said. Try yours. Jonas placed his hand on the panel. After a second, it blinked green and the door slid open. Inside, the air was stale and dry. Dust covered the panels, but some of the lights were still glowing. Azari wiped off the main console and activated the screen. A soft hum filled the room. Jonas handed her the tablet. This is the clip. Can you send it? She connected the tablet to the console and typed quickly. Yes, it's working. It's connecting to the old Earth Council channel. Encoding the message now. Jonas held his breath. Message sent. Azari said. We did it. But then, the tower shook. A sharp blast hit the sidewall, sending sparks flying. They found us, Jonas yelled. A figure stepped through the broken door. An alien hunter in dark armor, holding a strange energy weapon. You two weren't supposed to be involved, the hunter said coldly. Azari stepped in front of Jonas, arms raised. Leave him alone. He's just a human. No, the hunter said. He's more than that now. He's a threat. Jonas scanned the room quickly. He spotted a control lever on the wall labeled Emergency Lockdown. Without thinking, he dove toward it and pulled it down. Metal doors slammed shut over the windows and entryways. The hunter fired, but the blast bounced off the shielded wall. Jonas and Azari ducked behind the console. We have to escape, she said. There's an old exit tunnel beneath the tower. Follow me. They climbed down a ladder behind the control board, disappearing into the darkness below just as the hunter began cutting through the locked doors. Jonas's heart raced. But even through the fear, one thought gave him hope. The message had been sent. Now the galaxy would know the truth. Jonas and Azari ran through the darkened tunnel beneath the communications tower, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. Behind them, the sounds of laser blasts and the clanking of the alien hunter's tools grew fainter, but that didn't make Jonas feel safer. He could still hear his heart thumping in his chest, the adrenaline of their close escape still making his breath shallow. Azari led the way, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dark, casting a soft light as they moved deeper into the tunnel. How far to the exit? Jonas asked, trying to catch his breath. Just a few 100 meters, she replied. We'll be safe once we reach the surface. They came to a small chamber with an old rusted hatch in the ceiling. Azari opened it with ease, and they both climbed out into the cool night air. The exit was hidden in a field of tall grass, the same place they had crossed earlier on their way to the tower. Azari scanned the area for any signs of movement. We have to move fast, she said, her voice steady but urgent. They took off across the field, sticking to the shadows. The sound of the alien hunter's pursuit was still faint, but it wouldn't take long before they realized they had escaped into the tunnels. Jonas didn't want to think about what would happen when they realized they were gone. Azari led him through the winding paths of the field, and soon they reached a narrow road that led to a small town. From there, they could catch a transport back to the colony's central hub and hide. Where are we going now? Jonas asked, his eyes scanning their surroundings for any threats. To a safe house, Azari said. We need to make sure the message went through. We can't risk staying in the colony any longer. Jonas nodded. His thoughts raced. The message had been sent, but how long would it take for the Earth Council to respond? They had exposed the rogue alien faction, but it felt like they were still in danger. Azari led him through a series of alleyways and hidden routes until they reached a small, unassuming building. It was one of the few places on the colony where humans and aliens could meet without attracting attention. Azari knocked 3 times on the door, and after a brief moment, the door opened. An older human man stood in the doorway, his face lined with age, but his eyes sharp with understanding. Azari, Jonas, he said in a quiet voice, ushering them inside. I heard what happened. The transmission is secure. Azari nodded. It's been sent. The Earth Council will see it soon. The man, whose name was Kieran, led them inside. The walls were covered with old maps, books, and electronic screens showing different parts of the galaxy. It was clear Kieran had connections to the higher-ups in the colony, and that was why he was trusted with a place like this. We can rest here for now, Kieran said, but we need to plan next steps. If the message reached Earth, it won't be long before the rogue faction comes after you both. Jonas sat down, feeling the weight of the situation settle in. We're not safe yet. They'll try to silence us. Azari looked at him. They will. But now the truth is out. The message can't be erased. We just have to hold on long enough for Earth to act. Karen turned to a nearby console and began typing quickly. I'll contact my sources. If Earth takes action, the Council might intervene directly, but it'll take time. The rogue faction has a lot of power. They've already begun moving against us. Jonas felt his nerves on edge. How can we help them if we're stuck here? Karen gave him a calm look. You've already done more than most people would have. You exposed the truth. Now, we wait. And if needed, we'll fight back. Jonas stood up. I didn't come this far to wait. We can do more. Azari glanced at him. What do you have in mind? We can send out more recordings, more proof, Jonas suggested. We have that device you mentioned. If we can get it back online and send out more of the data, the truth will spread faster. Karen considered this for a moment. It's risky. The rogue faction will be looking for any signs of rebellion. But you're right. If we can get more proof out there, Earth will have no choice but to act. I'll go, Jonas said without hesitation. I can get to the old broadcast station near the northern ridge. It's out of their reach. Azari shook her head. It's too dangerous. They'll be looking for you. They won't stop until they find you. I don't care, Jonas said firmly. We've already risked everything. I'm not waiting for them to come after us. We can finish this. Azari met his gaze. You're right. We'll do this together. Karen nodded, his face set in determination. We have no time to waste. The rogue faction won't give up easily, but if we act fast, we can take them down. Jonas looked at Azari and then at Karen. Let's make sure they regret underestimating us. The plan was set. Jonas, Azari, and Karen had gathered around the small table inside Karen's hidden safe house. The message had been sent, but it wasn't enough. They needed more. The rogue faction had to be exposed, and if they wanted Earth to react, they had to do it now, before the rogue aliens could erase any trace of the truth. Jonas, you'll need to be quick, Karen said, tapping a map on the table. The northern broadcast station is isolated, but it's vulnerable. It's a small target, but if you're caught, there's no way out. Jonas nodded. His pulse quickened, but his resolve was clear. We don't have much time. We need to make sure they can't erase this message. Azari placed a hand on his shoulder. We're in this together. You won't be alone. Jonas looked up at her, grateful. She had been with him through everything, from the first strange meeting to their narrow escape from the hunter. And now it was time to finish what they had started. The transmission from the tower is still secure, right? Jonas asked. Karen nodded. Yes, it's encrypted and should hold for now. But that rogue faction has access to powerful technology. They'll come for you, Jonas. It's a matter of when, not if. Azari glanced at the map. We can't let them get there first. Jonas had to agree. They were fighting against an enemy that knew the systems better than they did, an enemy with resources and technology far beyond their reach. But they had something the rogue faction didn't. The truth. And the truth, no matter how much the faction tried to bury it, could not be erased. You need to get to the northern station and send out more of the footage you took, Karen explained. This time, make sure it's clear. Expose their plans for everyone to see. Jonas stood up. I'll do it. Azari stood with him. We're coming with you. No, Jonas said, shaking his head. This is something I have to do. I can't risk anyone else getting caught. I'll take the back route, Azari said, her voice determined. We'll be close by, ready to help. Jonas hesitated. The thought of letting her stay behind wasn't easy, but they couldn't risk losing her too. Be careful, he said softly. With that, Jonas left the safe house and began the trek toward the broadcast station. Azari's glowing orb floated above them, leading the way through the thick woods. The air was cool and crisp, but Jonas barely noticed. His mind was focused on the task ahead. As they neared the broadcast station, The lights of the structure grew brighter in the distance. It wasn't far now, but the closer they got, the more he could feel the danger creeping in. He kept his pace steady, eyes scanning every shadow. "I need to get inside without being detected," Jonas whispered, his voice tight with urgency. "Once I access the control panel, I'll send the broadcast." Azari, who had been walking just behind him, nodded silently. She was always calm in situations like this, her quiet confidence a stark contrast to his racing heart. But Jonas knew she was worried. They both were. The station's entrance was covered by a large security gate, but the surveillance cameras had been offline for years. It was one of the few places where humans had made adjustments, allowing easy access to the public. Jonas ducked under a rusted archway and slipped inside, making sure the area was clear before moving forward. Inside, the air smelled stale, and the flickering lights above cast long, stretching shadows along the walls. The station had been abandoned for some time, but the main control room was still operational, its systems powered by an old generator beneath the floor. Jonas pulled out his tablet and connected it to the station's terminal. The interface was outdated, but the system still had access to the Earth Council's private network. He typed quickly, setting up the transmission to broadcast the footage they had sent before. Only this time, it would be more. The screens flickered as Jonas uploaded the files, his fingers trembling slightly. He checked the time. He didn't have much longer before the rogue faction's drones would detect his activity. "Done," he whispered to himself. He hit the final command to send out the broadcast, then quickly disconnected the system and erased any traces of his presence. The transmission would be sent across multiple channels, reaching not only the Earth Council, but any other species in the galaxy who had access to the network. The truth would be out, and there would be no going back for the rogue faction. Just as Jonas turned to leave, he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps. Heavy, quick steps, coming down the hall. He froze. A drone appeared at the far end of the hallway. Its metallic body hummed, its eyes scanning the room. "Got to go," Jonas muttered to himself. He darted out of the control room, taking the narrow hall that led to a side exit. But just as he reached the door, another drone appeared, blocking the way. He quickly ducked behind a column, his heart pounding. The drone hovered for a moment, scanning the room, then turned away. Jonas didn't waste any time. He pushed open the exit door and bolted outside, sprinting back into the woods. He heard the drones follow, their whirring blades growing louder. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. He had done what he came to do. The broadcast was sent. Now it was up to the galaxy to decide what would happen next. Jonas didn't stop running until his lungs burned and his legs felt like lead. The distant hum of the drones chasing him grew louder with each step. But he couldn't afford to slow down. Not now, not when everything was riding on this moment. The message had been sent, but the rogue faction wouldn't let it go without a fight. They were after him. They were after the truth. He zigzagged through the trees, the night air cold against his skin. A small voice inside urged him to turn and face them, to fight back. But he knew better. If he stopped now, they would catch him. A few more steps, and he reached a small hill overlooking the valley. From here, he could see the lights of the colony in the distance, the faint glow of the broadcast station just behind him. He had to make it to the rendezvous point. Azari would be waiting for him there. But then he heard it, a low, mechanical whirring. He spun around, his heart skipping a beat. The drones were closing in, hovering just above the trees. "Not good," Jonas muttered, ducking behind a large rock. He pressed himself against the cold surface, trying to remain as still as possible. The drones circled the area, their scanners sweeping across the landscape. A few minutes passed before the drones flew away, heading in the opposite direction. Jonas let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That was close," he whispered to himself. He took a moment to steady his breath before heading back down the hill. The rendezvous point wasn't far now. As he moved toward it, He kept his ears open for any sign of Azari. The sound of crunching leaves behind him caught his attention. He spun around just in time to see her silhouette emerging from the trees. Azari was a shadow in the night, her silver hair flowing behind her like a streak of light. "You made it," she said softly, walking up to him. Her face was calm, but there was a flicker of worry in her eyes. "I did," Jonas replied, looking behind him one last time to make sure no drones were in sight. The broadcast went through. "It's out there now." Azari's face softened, and for a moment, Jonas saw a flicker of relief in her eyes. "You did it. You really did it." "We did it," he corrected her. "Without you, I wouldn't have made it this far." She smiled faintly. "We're a team, remember?" Jonas nodded. It felt strange, hearing those words from her. He had never thought of himself as part of a team before. But with Azari, it felt like they were unstoppable. "We can't relax just yet," Jonas said, his gaze scanning the dark horizon. "The rogue faction knows we're a threat now. They'll stop at nothing to silence us." Azari didn't argue. She knew the stakes better than anyone. "They will try," she said quietly. "But they underestimated humans. They always have." Jonas met her gaze, and we're not backing down. For a moment, the two of them stood in the quiet of the night, side by side, as if the galaxy's weight had shifted just a little. The fight was far from over, but Jonas felt a surge of hope. The truth had been exposed, and it was only a matter of time before the rest of the galaxy knew what the rogue faction had been trying to hide. Azari broke the silence. "We'll need to leave the colony soon." "If they find us here." Jonas nodded. "We can't stay here, but we'll have to move fast." "Agreed. But I know a place where they won't find us," she said. "It's a bit of a risk, but I trust the people there." "Where?" "An old safe house," she replied. "It's deep in the mountains, away from all the major routes. If we make it there, we can lie low until the Earth Council makes their move." Jonas looked at her, considering the idea. He had no doubts that Azari knew the way, but it still felt like a gamble. "You're sure it's safe?" "For now," she said. "We'll have to trust that the message we sent will reach the right people." Jonas thought for a moment. He could feel the urgency rising again. But this time it was tempered by something else, a sense of relief. The fight wasn't over, but they had made it through the first battle. They had done something no one thought possible. They had exposed the truth.